communication service. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's see here. Let me hit continue. Let's keep moving here. Uh-oh. There we go. So this is a conversational flow, and we'll demo what Tango does here in a second, but I thought this would be helpful just to illustrate the paths that we provide to users when they do ask questions. On the left over here, or on the side of the screen, we see questions come in. What does probate mean? That's a court term or a legal term. Or does my state have a stand your ground law, right? That's a law that they're looking for information about. And when I say they, I'm talking about the public, the general public. I was in a wreck and I need a lawyer. Where do I go for jury duty? That's a court question. So when someone asks our skills these questions, we use AI in the background to interpret what exactly they're asking, what their main goal is, and we route them to one of three paths, whether that's to an attorney profile that is pulled from our online application, whether it's court information that's local to them, and again, that information comes from public-facing websites, or whether it's just general legal information, and again, does my state have a stand your ground law? Here's the law, here's what the law says. And then we can either have the option to route that user to an attorney profile. Perhaps their question is, what happens if you get a DUI, right? Or what happens if, you were hit by a drunk driver? Maybe that's their question. What does the law say about X, Y, and Z? But they may need to loop in a legal professional to get action or to take action after that question is actually.
And we also know, say, for example, I was in a wreck and I need a lawyer. Okay, so we understand that maybe they need a personal injury attorney for that question. Our AI understands that. It also understands that, hey, you're in North Carolina, you're in Wake County, North Carolina, and I know what the law is for that. So I'm going to give you an answer based on what our AI understands, that you need a personal injury attorney, you're in this location, and then we'll give that attorney's profile to the person. And if they want it texted or emailed to them, it's up to them we give the information, and it's of course up to them to reach out to that professional based on that question.
Exactly. On our platform for legal professionals, we offer a monthly subscription plan. They get a voice-ready profile that ingests, we call them snippets, but is essentially a description of their services that these users can actually hear through their smart speaker, smart device, phone, watch, you name it. We have connections. We call it a voice to CRM connection, but if the user wants to engage with an attorney after they hear their snippet, then we can go ahead and deliver that user's contact information into a CRM or client intake software. And then we also provide search analytics. So if you think about it, maybe we like to say y'all in North Carolina, right? We like to say y'all a lot. So maybe, a user may use a local dialect, or they may be searching a certain way to find attorneys. And we can share those statistics and that information with attorneys, and they can then turn around and put that into their own website, their blogs, whatever that may be, and that helps SEO. So we really wanted to at least bridge the two between those who are asking the questions and those who can actually provide.
Yeah, and if you compare this to like a Google search, somebody Googles something, they find your website, they click on it, say you have paid search going on, that just cost you $100 for that click, and you really don't know anything of why they clicked on and what was the purpose they clicked on your website. Mm-hmm. So with Tango Legal, we know where they're at, so we know their location, we know what question they asked, and because our AI is smart enough to understand, hey, that's for a PI attorney, and we serve up that attorney profile. Now, if they do give us permission to push that to your CRM or your intake, you know that person's local, and you know what they asked. Mm-hmm. You don't get that from any other search function.
Exactly.
Especially on voice.
So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try this demo. And this is just a demo of our Alexa skill right now. Let me play it. Open Tango Legal.
Hello. Welcome to Tango Legal. We connect you to trusted legal solutions. How can I help you? You can say something like, find attorney, to find an attorney in your area. Say court, to get information about your local courthouse. Or say legal question, to get information about a legal topic.
Find attorney.
Okay. What North Carolina county do you need an attorney in?
Wake.
I've got Wake. Is this correct?
Yes.
What type of attorney are you looking for? Say a practice area like personal injury or estates, and I'll search for one near you.
Personal injury.
Here's a legal professional in your area. Painter Law has a long track record of success in North Carolina and across the nation. We represent individuals who were injured through no fault of their own. With Painter Law, you will have a whole team of dedicated injury lawyers and legal professionals working on your case. We understand that every person and every case is unique, and we'll be with you every step of the way. We have the experience, compassion, and skills needed to help you recover the compensation you deserve. Need legal help with these matters? Visit us online at painterlaw.com or call us at 844-719-8170. Would you like us to text you this information?
No.
Okay. Do you have another question for Tango Legal?
No.
Thanks for using Tango Legal. Goodbye.
And there you go. And I don't know if you noticed this, but when that snippet was actually being played, it was actually coming from our Tango Legal website and the profile page that Painter Law has that exists on our site. So that integration is kind of seamless as well, that we really worked hard to build out and just make it as easy and as simple as possible for, again, legal professionals to get on these voice-enabled platforms and devices.
Very cool. That's awesome.
There you go.
All right, here's your contact info. If you could maybe you put your direct email into the chat if people have questions for you, that might be helpful too. Or maybe they can just reach you through the info at Tango Legal. This is very impressive. So maybe you have time for one question, and then people might, if there's additional questions, they might reach out to you directly, if that's okay. Does anyone have a question for Sam or Mike? Okay, so Aaron's asking, how is it better than platforms like Avo, Martindale, Hubble, etc.?
Yeah, that's a good question. So one of the things that we've tried to distance ourselves from is we don't want to just be a lawyer directory, right? We just don't want folks to come in and then see a listing of attorneys. Although that is helpful in their own right. These are web platforms. You can access it from your phone or from any computer. One thing that we wanted to focus on is to provide information that may lead someone down the path of finding and using an attorney. So for example, we have court information on Tango Legal, and then we also have information about laws. So that's kind of like where we are a little bit different than what those other services provide. And also we are all in on voice. We've invested heavily on voice. We believe that is the next big thing for the web and technology. So we see ourselves in the future, we may be completely screenless. We may not even be using keyboards and things of that nature to get services and reach out to people.
Yeah, I guess I don't see us as like Avo, like a ranking. We're ranking, reviewing attorneys. You know, the attorneys we select will kind of go through a vetting process to make sure they are, vetted on our platform. That's kind of how we look at ourselves. And I think what we look at is like that connection. We want somebody to be able to ask, hey, how do I get my kids back? If you type that in Google, who knows what you're going to find? But if you type it in ours, hey, we understand what that means. That's child custody. We're going to push you to one of our professionals to help you move down that path.
Yeah. So we're running a little bit late on time. So what I would, there's a bunch of questions for you guys. So perhaps you could maybe answer them in the chat function.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be great, so that everyone can see your answer.
Sure. And
then if there's additional follow-up questions, perhaps people could reach out directly. But yeah, this is so cool and very exciting, a very exciting project. And I'll be looking forward to the time when you can just talk to your Alexa and get the legal advice you need. Thank you so much for joining us, Mike and Sam. It's been great
Thank
to have you.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
A quick
Thank you.
round of applause, and thanks again for being with us. And I will turn it over to our next speakers now. Thanks again. All right, so next up is Jerry from Evisort. Jerry, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
There you are. Okay, great. Jerry, take it away.
Okay.
Where are you joining us
I thought
from?
I'm joining from the Bay Area. I'm actually like 15 minutes from your campus.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Local.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. When I first heard of CodeX, I was actually getting my JD from HLS, and I was looking at Stanford and saying, wow, they're always pushing the envelope on tech and legal tech. So we started the company out of HLS at MIT back in late 2015. And what we are is we're a AI-powered contract analytics company. So spent some time at a big law firm. When I went to law school, about 6 weeks onto campus, I realized that I liked the idea of practicing law more than the actual reading of contracts. And I thought that it was really important from a data perspective to be able to quickly read a lot of contracts that are completely different and be able to pull data out without having to use large teams of people, which is traditionally the way that's been done. And so a couple of slides and have a demo today. Feel free to jump in with questions anytime. I like to make it collaborative, and so excited to kick off.
Sounds great, yeah.
Cool. So here's the problem that we solve. We work with companies of all sizes, from a 50-person company in Hawaii to some of the largest companies in the world. And the problem that we see companies have is there's not one single place where they can go to look for their contracts. And when I say contracts, I mean sales contracts, vendor contracts, employment contracts, loans and financing documents, real estate, right? If you think about the lifeblood of a company, every transactable opportunity or any initiative or partnership, there's a piece of paper that goes behind that's looked at by lawyers, financiers, and other professionals. But the problem with our current environment is that contracts get created in a variety of different ways, and then they get stored all over the place. So contracts can be created in DocuSign, they can be scanned with wet ink, they can be emailed back and forth, and then they get stored in SharePoint, Salesforce, Box, Dropbox, iManage, you name it, right? And so it really just goes all over the place. And what that does is it creates a ton of liability and a lot of inefficiency for legal departments inside these organizations. And so the question is, how do you solve this really deep problem using technology? Part of why the industry is the way it is today is if you look at the history of how the migration to cloud happened for enterprises, we went from a paper-based world to a cloud-based world. When people went to cloud, that I thought was a transformative moment for the legal industry. As a lawyer, I can't imagine going into the old, I heard stories of folks who are doing M&A due diligence where they have to go down to the printer and really roll out banker boxes to read these documents. That kind of work is no longer prevalent because things have moved to the cloud. But what happened when paper went to cloud is that we saw a variety of siloed, verticalized systems get created. So most contract management systems today do not have intelligence. It's a system where you can upload a contract, type in data manually, and highlight the indemnification clause. And then if you don't highlight it, the system won't do it for you automatically. My perspective is that that's going to be a thing that changes very quickly. Going forward, most systems in the future will have intelligence, whether it's like the folks working with Alexa or my next speaker who's working on data tagging. Increasingly, artificial intelligence is going to be the way of the future. And I think that there's no more telling way than to use a real life example. I drive a Tesla. Think back 10 years ago, when you're driving on a freeway, you have to just look straight and stay awake if you drive from San Francisco to LA. I can do that drive now with my hands on the steering wheel, but not really steering if you're going down a straight freeway because my Tesla can drive by itself. I think similarly in enterprise software, you're going to get the same effects by using automation. So a little bit of background on the company. We have over 20 lawyers working at Evisort. We have some of the engineers from the leading companies, including Uber, MuleSoft, and LinkedIn. We manage over 1 billion data points today, and we've raised over $21 million in the last 2 years. We work with clients of all different shapes and sizes in different industries. It's not just one kind of contract for one kind of client. We have Fujitsu as a client, Jelly Belly, the jelly bean company, which I think is quite fun. We've been to their plant before, and Microsoft as a client. And what really is happening here is we're seeing that legal tech is seeing a heyday. We're getting technologists and lawyers coming together in the same room to solve problems that before were thought to be impossible. And we're seeing that not just at Eversort, but across legal tech companies more broadly. When I first went out to fundraise for the project, it was back in 2016. I talked to several venture capitalists that told me that lawyers will never buy technology. It's not the way that lawyers work. Lawyers are traditional, they're conservative, and it was actually difficult to raise our first round of funding. The world has completely changed since then. And based on if the work that you guys have done at CodeX and otherwise, you've documented some of this. But here is a Forbes article that came out at the end of 2018, or I say 2019, looking at 2018. But between 2017 and 2018, the amount of venture capital dollars that went into legal tech grew by 713%. Legal tech as a category, interestingly enough, is about a $2.3 billion category, but it's growing at a 36% CAGR for the next 5 years. It's one of the fastest growing technology categories that we've seen from a venture capital investment category in the last decade. So what we do at Eversort is two things. We can own the entire signing process and the negotiation process, from creating a contract and negotiating back and forth, redlining all digitally in the same platform, integrating with e-signature platforms like Adobe Sign and DocuSign, and then automatically pulling out key clauses and dates and business information from even third-party scan contracts. That entire thing is delivered in one platform so that a in-house legal counsel or an IT department or a law firm that's working with in-house counsel, they can all collaborate on the same platform without having to go to several different places. And with that, I personally don't love using slides, and so I'll just jump into a presentation. So we integrate across the enterprise. So when we go to our clients, they have contracts stored all over the place, share local drives, SharePoint, people's email inboxes. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to integrate with the native workflows of where our customers work. So we can integrate with things like Google Drive, we can integrate with things like Salesforce, SharePoint. So you can add a contract into SharePoint and it will automatically come into Eversort. You don't need to upload it twice. One of the main problems that we see is if you have to upload it many times, and at most companies, you're actually repeating work. One department is looking at data from a finance perspective, one department is looking at it from a legal perspective. People are reading the same contract many times at the same department, at the same company. And so how do you centralize all that workflow in one platform? We integrate with different repositories. So if you add something in SharePoint, it can automatically come into Eversort. And what we then do is, this is where our proprietary artificial intelligence comes in. You can take a document that is a scanned PDF that we've never seen before, and we can pull out over 50 different data points automatically. No need for a human to type these metadata points anymore. We can tell you what kind of contract is it? Is the contract signed or not signed? What is the title? Who is the contract with? What is the internal legal entity that you're contracting with? And then a variety of operative information that's used by procurement and sales operations professionals. Each of these algorithms were developed by us in-house and is proprietary to Eversort. So most of the companies in the AI space, you have to work with a consulting firm. It takes several months to get set up. Ours, it works out of the box. You can sign up today and have Eversort this evening and upload 5,000 contracts, and the product will work without any implementation. You can actually see the contract. And if you want to verify the outputs of the AI, you can actually click the magnifying glass and actually show you where the artificial intelligence is getting the data from. So it makes validation and checking the work very easy. And then it pulls out clauses. Force majeure is a big one. I'll talk more about this in the response that we've led in helping companies react to COVID. But force majeure, governing law, indemnification clauses, LOLs, publicity clauses, all of these contract clauses work out of the box. So the need to have to manually read contracts and burn the midnight oil when a CFO or a finance partner comes to you and asks, what have we agreed to in the past? And we're on a deal right now. Have we agreed to similar terms in the past before? That's something you can automate from a data extraction perspective automatically using Eversort. I'll actually pause here because the demo can go much more in depth.
Yeah,
if there's any questions, I'm happy to take Q&A.
Can you run this across different contracts? I mean, this query, or is this always specific to one contract? If you want to sort of find out what's the
so let me
major clause, for instance.
Yeah, let's do that one as an example. So the benefit is actually both at the individual contract level and an aggregate. So if I'm running $1 billion supply chain and I have 15,000 vendor contracts, and I want to understand how COVID impacts my relationships with my vendors, here's how you can do that automatically. We have a clause library built in. You can go in and all of these clauses get pulled automatically. You can type in force majeure. And then we took a page out of the e-discovery book. We allow you to actually write custom search queries on top of your contracts. So what you can do is you can say force majeure and show me the ones where show me the force majeure clauses and show me the ones that refer specifically to ones that talk about pandemics. And if you run that search, what's going to happen is it's going to go across all your contracts. It's actually going to pull out the provisions for you, show you the contract title, who is it with, when was it actually effective, when does it expire, and it actually pulls all this data for you automatically so that you can actually do that kind of auditing and reporting in instant real time without having to go into Google Drive boxes and emailing people from all around the company and then being worried that you're going to miss a contract and really have a lot of liability both contractually and financially to that counterparty.
Great.
I did a summer at a law firm where I had to manually do this, and it was the paying was enough for me to really dedicate myself to automating this.
All right. So a bunch of people are chatting questions. So Miriam's asking, there are many legal tech companies that claim to have AI for contracts. Most of them seem to be content coding the contracts for information. Almost all claim to have unique AI. I'm wondering if it is time for an audit of these companies, since as Jerry Eating said, investment in legal tech is massive.
Yeah, so I think, to be honest, there's multiple ways to answer that question. The way that we sell to customers is we literally sit down, I go down to their office, my sales team goes down to their offices, and we say, bring contracts of your own. Don't show it to us. Don't give it to us beforehand. There's no canned funny business going on here. We'll literally upload it live with you, and you can see with your own eyes the outputs of the data. And not only will we do that, we'll give you a login for 7 days. Upload as many contracts as you need, because there's been a proliferation of AI companies where I put the word AI in brackets, but AI is a 2-letter term that means really nothing nowadays. It's an overblown marketing term. How does it actually work on your data? How does it work on data that it's never seen before in a way where you can actually use it in day-to-day practice? So I would encourage anybody who's looking at AI vendors, make them prove it to you, and you'll really quickly see which ones are actually got substance and which ones are just saying that they have it, but they actually don't.
Mm-hmm. So Aaron's asking, you plan to add marketplaces, APIs for third-party developers to build plugins for your platform?
Absolutely. Yeah, so we actually have API already built into the platform. So if you, I'll actually go here and show it to you. We're updating our API blog, but I can tell you more about how the API works by using a slide. Showing the actual code might be too much for this particular group. But what we can do is these are pre-built. So you have Google Drive, Box, SharePoint, all that works out of the box. You don't need to do any work. But for companies where you want to integrate this with a broader architectural suite, let's say Salesforce, Ariba, and Coupa, and accounting systems, we have a REST API that's available at developers.eversort.com, where you can build this entire workflow by yourself. A contract is stored in a different system. It goes to Eversort. We run OCR to convert scanned documents and pull out data. And then we can actually push that data back to other systems so we can actually enable other systems to be more intelligent as well. So that's a core part of our go-to-market.
Mm-hmm. That's neat. Ben's saying that there are many other AI companies that do this, like Abrevia, Kira, Luminance, Legal Sifters, etc. They seem to have a very similar feature set and interface. How do you set yourself apart?
Yeah, so those are great companies. I actually know the CEOs of almost all of those companies. And how we're different is we're actually a contract management system. So most AI vendors are focused on pulling out clauses. What we do is we actually are part of the workflow suite. So you can actually negotiate, create contracts, modify contracts, collaborate with different departments. And that's the area where I didn't show in the demo yet. But what I showed you so far, yes, there's other companies that can pull out clauses. I would argue that we're one of the most accurate in terms of being able to pull out clauses. But what's also available is we actually are part of the day-to-day workflow of our clients. What you can do is you can actually create tickets. A salesperson needs to come to a lawyer and say, please create a work order because we're negotiating a project with a vendor. What we can do is we can actually automate that process and actually create workflows where you can actually build an intake form. So a legal department can set up an intake form for business departments that they're collaborating with so they can gather information so that when they're reviewing the contract, they don't have to email back and forth. Right? So there's a workflow and an intake and a deal process that we automate. In addition to that, when you get into the actual review of contracts, we actually coordinate the review beyond legal. So legal can work with compliance, can work with finance, can work with IT. This entire process can be done in real time in our platform, enabled by artificial intelligence. So yes, there are other AI vendors that work exclusively on M&A projects, or they work on specific types of contracts, and they have a great business there. That's not the space that we play in. We focus more on working with enterprise clients as part of our broader business suite.
So, so we're a little bit close to the end of our time, but I'm gonna read the next 3 questions to you. Maybe you can like give an omnibus answer to those questions, and then I want to turn it over to our next speaker. So Lance is asking you, when you indicate that you're using an AI NLP parser and that is proprietary, can you say whether there's any open source used in your solution? That's Lance's question. And Matt's asking, what analytics capability does it have? If you wanted to understand the body of contracts as a whole rather than an individual one or individual, rather than an individual contract. And then Aaron's asking, also, do you plan to add some entry-level plans that customers can try and play with by themselves, something cost-efficient for startups? So if you could answer those questions, and maybe all additional questions, please, if you could give us an email address or a good way to contact you so people can reach out directly to you, that'd be great. Yeah,
so I'll answer that in one fell swoop. So the first one was, what kind of models do we use? We use recurrent neural networks, and we use neural nets. And so we do look at the research that's happening out there in public, but how we train the models, the training sets, how we QC the models, and the reinforcement learning model pipeline that we build is all proprietary. But we do use, like, for example, we looked at TensorFlow models as one of the many that we looked at from a neural network perspective. The second question is, how does it work in aggregate? And so one thing that I'll show real quickly is data is valuable when you visualize it. So we can actually say, here's all your contracts that are expiring next 12 months. Here are the ones that are automatically renewing. And then, oh, by the way, we can send you alerts and sync with your calendar to show you these are the actual contracts as they come up for renewal. And then the third question is, are there plans for startups? Yeah, we work with companies of all sizes. So we have a starter kit where you can just put in a couple hundred contracts. We have clients who put in 500,000 contracts. Because the thing is automated, we can turn it on tonight and give a startup some access to that right away.
Cool, Jerry. This is awesome. And I would love to talk with you. It's very cool. And thank you so much for joining us and telling us about the story of your company. And it seems like you're on a very, very good trajectory. And it's kind of neat that you're combining the whole life cycle with like these analytics. That's kind of that's very cool, I think, for users. So thank you for joining us. It's great to have you. And I'm going to turn it over now to Ivan. Thank you, Jerry. Take care.
Cool. Thank you.
Email in the chat.
Please, yeah, please put your email in chat, exactly, so folks can reach out directly. So Ivan, are you there?
I sure am.
Great to have you, Ivan. You're excited to learn about Datasaur.
Glad to be here. Thank you, Roland, for hosting this. It's exciting to see so many folks on the call. Welcome. I am calling in from Sunnyvale, so Bay Area local here as well.
Great.
Go ahead and share screen here. So today I'd like to talk to you about Datasaur. At a high level, we build data labeling tools for NLP. So I'm actually really grateful that Tango and Evisort went first, because that actually saves me a lot of context, right? We are building for NLP as a whole. That being said, you know, one of the most interesting spaces for us has been legal tech. And so they've covered a lot of the use cases already. Obviously, law has a lot of text documents that they need to process. And the following two quotes are actually directly from the CodeX website. So I just wanted to, you know, align with the theme of this meeting here. But e-discovery, computational law, two very interesting use cases for legal. And then beyond that, right, as we think about key technologies, and again, this is hearkening back to Tango and to Evisort here, it's important. NLP can be very powerful when helping out with things like information retrieval and question answering, when you're looking to extract automatically information from lots of these documents. And finally, for speech recognition itself, right? And so when it comes to the use cases, the direct, you know, end use cases, I've been learning a lot about e-discovery, about contract management. I swear I didn't change the slide just because of Evisort. And then also Lex Machina itself is helping a lot of IP attorneys craft their IP strategy by parsing through, you know, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of documents to automatically extract that information. So what exactly are we doing? What part do we play in all of this? Well, a little bit about my own background. I'm a Stanford alum, homegrown here. This is my second startup. And for the last 7 years, I've been spending, you know, I've been dedicated to product managing machine learning. Most recently, I was at Apple working on this. And throughout that time, I saw that AI is very powerful. NLP in particular has made a lot of advances in the last 5 years. So I'm a big believer in the end use cases that all of that can empower. But I also know that the dirty secret to our industry, you know, behind the scenes, you need a lot of labeled training data, right? And so in order to train all these algorithms, you have to feed it all of these examples from human labeled training data. And I've spent millions of dollars on this. And I've seen a lot of different companies reinvent the wheel, reinvent the tools and the processes over and over again. So about 1.5 years ago, I decided to leave my job and start Datasaur and solve this, you know, once and for all for the industry as a whole. So for those of you who are Stanford affiliated, we went through the StartX Accelerator program in fall of 2019, and we actually just graduated from Y Combinator a month and a half ago. We've raised, you know, seed funding, and we're backed by the CTO of OpenAI as well as the CTO of Segment. Now, when it comes to the NLP stack, right? Like I said, there is a lot of manual labeling that goes, that happens behind the scenes. And so because AI is still a relatively new industry and a new technology, everyone's still scrambling to discover what the best practices are. And that's led to a lot of manual labeling where humans are working, you know, 40-hour weeks just labeling documents day in and day out. This screenshot you see on the right-hand side here is not just some mock-up. This is actually how labeling is most commonly done, where you open Excel, you have some kind of text in the left-hand column, and then the second column is labeling the interesting entities, right? And you can imagine that there's a lot of errors when you're going through and labeling documents so manually like this. More importantly, for certain industries, specifically to industries like healthcare, like fintech, and the legal tech industries, there's a lot of sensitive data floating around. In fact, if you've been paying attention to some of the headlines over the last couple of years, you've seen companies like Amazon and Facebook and even Apple be embarrassed by data leaks, where your living room conversations are sometimes that, you know, it's revealed that they're being labeled by people around the world, by strangers. And that's just not acceptable as our privacy policies evolve. right? So we need to make sure that that sensitive data is being handled in a proper way, that we have proper data access rights, which is just not something that's easily done with Google spreadsheets. Beyond that, we're also seeing file format support, workforce management, team scalability. Sometimes people are managing thousands, tens of thousands of labelers at a time. And that becomes, you know, something where you don't want to just manually farm these out. And so for all of these reasons, we decided to create and start Datasaur. And so our approach for this, there were three kind of product pillars that we set out from the very beginning. The first goal was just to create an optimized interface. Excel is great as a all-around tool, but we realized that a lot of the people doing this labeling, they're power users. They're folks who are doing this, you know, day in and day out, and they need things like keyboard shortcuts and extensions and things that really empower them to label faster. The second thing that frustrated me was that I would spend all this money, millions of dollars, just labeling data, but we'd also be labeling things like Starbucks and June and Saturday. Like, we know what these things are already, and yet we would still be paying people to label these very basic primitive types. And so we are trying to build intelligence into that process, semi-automated labeling, so that you're not spending money labeling things that, you know, even computers already understand. And the final piece is what I was referring to, where workforce management has become increasingly important. You need to identify, you know, the progress that people have made, who should be labeling any specific document, getting things wrapped up into a performance dashboard like you see here. Since we've launched the labeling platform, we've been partnering with NLP experts all around the globe. We have over 1 million labels being applied annually. We have been partnering with top universities and academics, right? So we're talking to folks in the Stanford CS department as well as universities worldwide. Another important element of this is that we do offer a web-based application. But we also go the distance, and we're working with one bank in particular to provide an on-premise solution. And so again, it's all about that sensitive data and personally identifiable information. So they're working with Datasaur on fully air-gapped computers so that so none of this data is ever being uploaded to the internet, and it's fully compliant with local regulations. And finally, I was a little self-conscious about showing this here because I do not have a legal background, and this is probably labeled incorrectly. But I wanted to just give a quick screenshot of what labeling looks like on the Datasaur platform. So this is, again, a paragraph that I grabbed from the computational law article from the CodeX site. And you can imagine, you can understand that in legalese in particular, there's a lot of really important clauses, right? Jerry earlier was showing the force majeure clause and needing to be able to identify that. Well, as a step, as an ingredient to being able to train NLP algorithms to identify these clauses across different verticals, across different types of contracts, you'll want to do something like this, where you may have certain phrases that you label as conditions, as exceptions to the rule, as different types of contractual clauses. So this is just one sample document that I quickly whipped up for today's presentation. Wanted to pause there for a moment. I can go through and actually show a live demonstration of the Datasaur tool, but you guys have been good about throwing questions into the chat, and I wanted to just pause for a moment and give an opportunity to answer any questions.
Very cool. Does anyone have any questions for Ivan at this point? Peter's asking, what are the most promising legal applications?
Right. So I think holistically, what we've seen is, broadly speaking, one of the most popular things has been to label contracts, right? So where Datasaur can come into play there is we can pre-identify things like the names of people and dates. That's something that our pre-existing models already understand. But what companies will then use us for is they'll label the legalese. They'll label the specific clauses that they're looking to extrapolate from that, right? And this is actually the most basic use case as well, where you are just highlighting phrases and applying labels to them. Just very briefly, I'm going to show you this type of project as well, where in addition to applying these labels, you are able to draw arrows from one thing to another. And so this is, we've built a technology that allows you to apply these dependencies. And so you can imagine for clauses, you can say like, this is a dependency clause on this other thing that we've labeled higher up.
Very cool. That's very cool. And okay, great. Miriam's asking, it is so interesting to see technology that can accurately detect essential matters in contracts. I had to code 172 contracts using NVivo for my PhD. Will you pitch your software to universities for use?
Yeah, and actually,
a PhD in law have access to the software?
Yeah, so actually a bit of a plug here. We actually provide our software to academics and universities for free. Right? This is part of our giving back. We have folks using us to label a lot of different things for their PhD theses. And so, yeah, if you wanted to reach out, this is something we'd be happy to partner with you on.
Cool. And okay, so Giridhar is asking, could you make a bit more, could you talk a bit more about how it is semi-automated? How does it compare to open source tools such as Docano and proprietary tools such as Labelbox?
Yeah, great question. So we took inspiration from products, open source tools like Docano, WebAno, and Brat, right? So you can perhaps see those design inspirations in our tool. As far as the semi-automated, let me just, against the rules of live presentations, let me see if I can get a live demo up and running here. So here's a typical article from CNN. It's not necessarily a legal document, but if I press this magic button, auto label, it'll go through and apply the labels. In this case, we've done an integration with Spacey, which is one of the more well-known NLP toolkits out there. And so pressing this auto label button, you can see it captures United States, North Korea, Stockholm, Sweden, right? All these well-known entities, even Kim Jong-il, which is probably a name it's never seen before, it still recognizes that. It's not perfect. So you can see down here, DPRK, of course, that's that's another term for North Korea. In this case, it captured it as an organization. So humans will still have to, a human will always have to be in the loop to review and confirm all of these labels. But that is the semi-automated portion. And our hope is to get to the point where we are labeling 70% of your document for you, so that you just have to focus on the terms that are unique to you and your particular use case.
Cool. And what's when you work with business entities, what's your business model?
Right. So we have different offerings as always for kind of individual hobbyists, startups, and growing businesses, as well as enterprise, right? So we actually do also have a free tier. If you're just an individual labeler, you can come in, sign up, and we can get you started on the platform immediately. But for growing teams, then you start unlocking the capabilities of, for example, the workforce management, right? As your team starts scaling, as you need to assign different labelers to work on different elements of the product, that's where you're accessing the growth tier. And then finally for enterprise, that's where we can work with you for dedicated SLAs, for service needs, customer support needs, and on-premise capabilities as well. I also want to just take a quick moment to showcase as we were going through this, we worked with, I interviewed over 100 ML teams around the world to identify best practices. And one of the most common things that we were seeing is not only do you need to assign people to different projects, people who are serious about this labeling, AI is a garbage in, garbage out technology. And so you don't just want one person's opinion on labeling. Sometimes you need multiple people's perspectives. So you'll end up with something like this, where you've got Brenda and Thomas and Danny all looking at the exact same article, and some project manager, supervisor, engineer has to go back through and say, look, this is where Brenda disagreed with her colleagues. This is where Danny disagreed with his peers over here. And they have to make a final arbitration or call. But this is a really messy spreadsheet, right? You don't want to be looking at something like this for hours at a time. So one of our most beloved features is actually a conflict resolution tool. It's our label review tool, where anything in gray your team already agrees on, and anything in red, these are the conflicts that you need to go back through, resolve these conflicts, and you're set to go.
That's great, as long as you're not colorblind as I am. Red-green weakness.
Yes.
That's great. It seems like a really cool tool. So we're almost running out of time, but I want to read the last two questions, and maybe you can also take them together then.
Certainly.
And yeah, thank you, by the way, for sharing your email here, so people who have more questions can reach out directly. Scott is saying, Ivan, great. In what ways are you creating data labeling software for training natural language processing models, including ML-assisted labeling and workforce management features interlingually in contracts, for example, and eventually in voice possibly?
Yeah.
So that's the first one. And then Ben's asking, what about AI companies that claim that you don't need any labeling, but just use pattern recognition?
Right. So I'll take the first one's a quick answer. We actually were, we had global customers from the day that we launched. So this handles any language that can be rendered properly on a web browser. So we had to make a couple of tweaks to handle Thai language recently, but we actually do handle clients in multiple languages around the world. As far as companies who claim that you can do pattern matching only, I'd say that there are two major branches under one dichotomy for AI. One is supervised learning and one for unsupervised. We fall specifically under the supervised learning model, right? So anybody who needs to train off of existing training data, that's what we can help with. Unsupervised has its own use cases, but yeah, Datasaur probably isn't the right tool to help with that side of things.
Great. Okay, and so you answered the last question out of the pattern recognition question.
Yeah, I think pattern recognition, you will need, if you're going to be doing supervised, you will need some level of sample data to begin with. People are finding ways to, reduce the amount of training data required, but at the end of the day, you do need something to feed into most supervised models.
Interesting. Cool, Ivan, this is fantastic. This is so cool. I know there's gonna be a lot, sounds like a game changer for so many different industries that are depending on human labeling at the moment, and very cool. So you keep my fingers crossed that you find cool applications also in the legal space. It seems like there's already some academics interested in potentially working with you. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to all our other presenters for your presentations and the great work you're doing. And thank you all to all the participants for your great questions. And we will convene again next week, same time. And we will make an announcement regarding who will be speaking next week, early next week. All right, thank you all. And yeah, take care and stay safe. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.